KRiggsArt. I also shared the link on Facebook if you want to go from there.
I was about to say, as long as you pull her up, as soon as she goes live, it'll tell you. Actually, if you're subscribed to her, as soon as she goes live.
I'm live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Inktober Day 18. Hey, we're almost through week 3. That's pretty awesome. Okay, and I'm going to look up my verse because I haven't done that yet. I know it pretty well, but I want to make sure I get it correct for you guys. And get the right, what's the word I'm looking for? Get the right reference. So that, because I'm really bad at remembering references. So if you'll bear with me. Meanwhile, I'll take down my paper so that hopefully it doesn't curl too much. All right, verse for today is Matthew 17:20. And that's not a direct quote, but it says, there we go. If you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you. And today's verse was inspired by my good friend Josh. Thank you, Josh.
What up?
And you guys got to say hi to him yesterday. So, I considered possibly going with mountains from here in Utah, but I decided to go with ones I'm a little bit more familiar with, and those are in Oaxaca. So I only did a small sketch, and I'm going to wing it from here probably. Let's see. Bring up my screen so I can talk to you guys. And we're all set. Sweet. And it's been a while since I've done a quick overview. Oh, it's doing the whole blurry thing. Let's try flipping it. See a quick shot of my ceiling. And yeah, that's better. Okay. Yay, technology. Okay. So quick review of what supplies I'm using. Now, I went over some extra supplies that I don't use as often in my first couple of videos. If you want to go back to those and watch those, please feel free. For today, I've got my crow quill pen, and this actually comes just with a bunch of different nibs, and so they just stick in there like that. This one's my favorite, and basically the only one I use. And then I've got India ink. There are a lot of different brands that are good. I have a large bottle that I refill this little guy with because I go through a lot of ink. And then of course I've got my water to rinse off my brushes, my trusty paper to test my strokes to make sure that I don't leave blobs of ink on my paper. So I'll just kind of do that, make sure it's coming out well. And then of course my paper towel, and it has many different uses, but usually I'll just use it to wipe off my pen. Sometimes I will use it, like if you were live with me yesterday, or you can go back and watch yesterday's video. I'll use it in conjunction with water to add more of a grayscale to my drawing. So today's reference image comes from southern Mexico, south of Oaxaca City. If you're curious, that's spelled Oaxaca, and yes, it's pronounced Oaxaca. And these mountains are the lovely things that you have to go through in order to get to the ocean. And it's not the nicest of trips. I'm usually pretty good at not being too carsick, and these mountains always get me. So I figured they were a pretty good subject for this verse. You have to get through them in order to get to the awesome beach. Which, by the way, Puerto Escondido and Huatulco are like my favorite beaches ever. So if you ever get the chance, you should go visit. If you like waves, Puerto is the beach for you. If you prefer snorkeling, go to Huatulco. It is a little bit more expensive, but you've got some really awesome coral reefs and things like that. But if you drive, be aware that you get to deal with these wonderfully tall mountains and the roads that connect them to the city. And let's see, I'm going to start with my little tree here. It's kind of high in the mountains where I took this picture, so this one's going to be a little scrubby pine tree. This was actually at the end of the very long drive. It's about 7 hours, and at least 5 of those are switchback curves. So this is near the end. It was just a beautiful day. These little pine trees here. And yesterday I talked a little bit about getting symmetry in your drawings and how you want to make sure that, especially when drawing something natural, you don't go too symmetrical, follow too much of a pattern, because you won't see that in nature, unless it's, you know, something like a conch shell or anything like that. But especially like leaves or texture on a tree, which is where I was talking about yesterday, you want to make sure and keep it a little bit more organic. And at this point, I'm not even looking at my reference photo. I did a little sketch of the base, or the trunk of the tree, and I'm just kind of making it up from there. Okay, so I've got 3 different mountains on top of each other, this one being the furthest. Might actually, now this wasn't at all part of the image, but I'm gonna, just for the fun of it, add some mountains further in the back. I like mountain ranges. I think they're awesome. And they're really fun to create the I don't know what I was saying. To get the feeling of distance. So these 2 back here will be my lightest ones, and it'll get darker as it comes forward. And let's see. Okay, I'm actually gonna rinse off my pen. I'm gonna use my Crow Quill pen, probably very little in comparison to what I usually do in this one. Now you want to make sure and rinse it off and clean it, because ink dries very fast, so that's an important step so that it doesn't dry on your nib and make it difficult to work with. And let's see, I'm going to, how do I want to do this? I'm going to go in with my brush. So this is my brush. I didn't go over this one when I started. It's a tiny little fine brush, synthetic. It was a little bit pricey, but I love it. It's a size 1, so it's a really fine point. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to darken the edge of this mountain here, like so. I'm going to keep my brush strokes kind of loose and relaxed. And I'm going to do the same for this one back here. So those 2 mountains are on the same range, and they're a little further away. At the moment, since they have the most black on them, they're the darkest. They're actually coming forward in the picture, but we'll fix that in a minute. Okay, rinse off my brush so the ink doesn't dry. And my trusty paper towel. And yes, I do probably go through more paper towel than I should when I'm doing these, but it's such a useful tool. So dip it in the water, and I've got this wet ink here along the edge, and I'm just going to pull that down to create my mountain. I'm going to change some of the strokes so it's not as wet as I was kind of hoping when I went into this. But I'm going to add some texture. I'm not too worried if I go into the mountain below it. This is going to be my lightest mountain, and it's just going to get darker from here. Again, that's the atmospheric perspective that I've been talking about. See, this one's still more wet than the other one was, and so it's a little darker. I actually want to dab that so it's not quite so dark. Okay. And I didn't quite keep in the lines, but that's okay. Okay. And I'm going to fold that so I have a clean corner. I'm going to get out my brush again and go along the edge. This time I'm using more ink. You see it just sort of dripped off there. Because I want this mountain to be darker so that it brings it forward and it's not as far back as the other two mountains. And I'm going to give it a little bit more shape, so I'm going to bring down a little ridge coming down here. Maybe do a little something here. Okay, good enough. Rinse off my brush. Dip my paper towel. And do the same process again. See, it's picking up a whole lot more ink, and I want it to do that so it brings it forward a little bit more. But I'm still keeping a little bit of the details, like this ridge here and this little ridge here happening. And there's a lot less control doing it this way because you don't always know exactly where the ink is on your paper towel. But it's kind of freeing that way. It's kind of fun. Okay. Now this one goes in front of this one, so this one's going to be a little bit darker than this one, and then this one I think I might go full black. If I do, I might get rid of my pine tree, but we'll see what happens with that. So go in with my brush again, nice and thick, so I have a lot of ink to work with when I go in with my paper towel. And I want to emphasize, especially here, the dividing line between this mountain and this mountain. So I'm going to darken it down in that valley there. And like on the other one, let's do kind of a little ridge here, a little bit more something here. I don't know, something like that. I'm just sort of putting black on wherever I feel like it at this point. Rinse off my brush, and since I'm going darker, I'm not going with a clean spot on my paper towel. I'm going to use the dark spot that I've already used. I am going to dip it again so it has more water though. And we're just going to kind of spread that ink around. Gives a nice dark mountain here in the front. You know what would be fun? I might go over this pine tree and then go back in, let it dry a little bit, go back in with a white pen, my white gel pen, and see if I can put in some details that way. That could be fun if it works. Yeah, there we go. So now that dark, so we have a progression here, a nice dark mountain, a medium, a light, two light ones, and then the sky, which is the furthest back. Now this one up here, I'm not going to use the same method. I'm just going to go straight in with my brush. And I'm sorry if you like my little pine tree. It's time to say goodbye to it. But hopefully it'll come back in white. We'll see if it dries fast enough for us to do that. If it doesn't, I might actually get out my white acrylic paint. It sometimes works better than my gel pen. So I went today with my friends and we visited the Salt Flats here in Utah. It's right on the borderline between Utah and Nevada. And it doesn't sound very exciting, and the initial idea isn't very exciting. They're just basically big plains of salt, but it's really kind of amazing just to go out and walk through it and see what it's like. If you have a tougher car, I only have a little sedan, so I didn't try it. If you have a tougher car, you can drive further out and do donuts and experience what it's like to drive on a looser surface and play around, and they're really pretty awesome. So if you're ever in Utah, in northern Utah, I highly recommend them. I think it's fun. It is a little bit far from Ogden, so if you want to see them, maybe plan accordingly. Oh, the reason I brought them up is because I was really enjoying the mountains that were off the edge of the salt flats. So they're, well, as their name suggests, they're super flat, and it's basically like a desert, but it's white instead of tan colored. And then on the very edge are these really rugged rocks with, you can see all of the strata and all of the different planes on the mountain and stuff, and the sun was just right when we were there. It had these really awesome shadows, and I considered doing that for today's drawing. However, I decided that I didn't feel like drawing that many rocks. And I have a special connection to Oaxaca. It's where I grew up, so there's just something special about Oaxaca's mountains that I love. Okay, and I'm going to actually try and spread out this ink here so it's not too thick, so it doesn't take too long to dry, so we can go back in with the white. There we go. I'm going to rinse off my brush. And again, as you see, we've got that beautiful progression. Now, my furthest mountains, the top part of them is probably too dark. They don't blend in with the sky like they should. It dried a little faster than I hoped, so it didn't blend in as well. And that line actually brings them forward a little bit, and so it ruins the illusion just a little bit. But while that dries, so we can go in with my white gel pen, this one right here. It's the best one I've found so far. I do want to try just using whiteout. Jim Lee, who is really well known in the comic book industry, he's an incredible artist. When I got to watch him draw this summer, he used whiteout for his white spots, and it seemed to work really well for him, so that's something that I want to try eventually. But I haven't bought the whiteout yet, but it's like a whiteout pen. Super awesome. Anyway, while that ink dries, I'm going to promote my awesome little stickers because I think they're amazing. So I have one on my computer and I have one on my phone, and let's see, there they are. They've got my logo and my website, and they're super awesome. You should totally have one for your computer. And these I'm giving out, but the first 50 of them are reserved. They will be going in the swag bag. They are the only thing in the swag bag that, no, I take that back. There are 2 things in the swag bag that non-patrons will have access to, but limited. But anything else that goes in that swag bag will be limited to any of my patrons. The first 50 patrons who sign up on Patreon, Patreon, KRiggsArt, will get this special swag bag that is reserved only for them. I will show you the only other thing that's in that swag bag that other people might have a chance to get. And it is a super awesome pen. Again, with my logo and website. And I am really excited about my pens. So yeah, if you want these and other awesome exclusives, head on over to patreon.com and check out what's happening there. You can get some really awesome rewards for helping me create these videos for you and continue creating awesome art. I am working on a book. It's called Farron, and I will be talking about that more later, but I'm hoping to publish it next month. So you should definitely keep an eye out for that. It's going to be awesome. Okay. So my mountain is still a little bit wet. I'm going to let it keep drying, but I should go back to my drawing because that's what you guys are here to watch, rather than me talking about Patreon. So I'm actually going to go back to my pen, and I'm going to give my sky a few clouds just for the fun of it. So, got to make sure my pen's actually drawing. There we go. Here we go. I'm going to do some little wispy things up here. Hi, Sarah. Hope you had a good day. There we go, a couple clouds up there. Yeah, the white pen is going to be for the trees, so it'll actually stand out against the black background. So since I filled in the black, I want to bring in the white. It'll really pop forward. You want contrast to bring attention to different subjects, and the closer it is to you, the better contrast it'll have, the more details it should have. That might be dry enough. We're going to try it. My pen might not like it too much, but we'll see. So, kickstart it, you know. If you grew up in the 90s, you know how temperamental gel pens can be. They were super awesome and the best thing ever until they stopped working. Okay, yeah, it's still a little too wet there to really pick up the ink. But I'm getting sort of the idea, so I'm going to redo my little tree here. And the advantage to that is you just get to watch me draw a pine tree again. And hopefully you enjoyed it the first time. So you can tell where my black ink is still pretty wet because the pen stops working in those spots. And I'm not doing super bright white trees in the front here, so they will stand out a little bit, but they won't be the focus of my drawing. If they were perfect white, they would really stand out against this background, and they would jump forward. It would be the first thing you would see. It would be the focus of my drawing. Go ahead and comment below if you are interested in having me start up my tutorial videos again. I might start with one regarding composition and how to set up your drawing to make sure that it looks good and all of the elements in the drawing work together well. So comment below, let me know if you're interested in that, and I will work on getting that out for you. Also, if you like my YouTube videos, once I reach 50 patrons on Patreon, I will start putting out a video every week rather than every other week. Now, of course, Inktober is special in that I'm live streaming every single day. That is not the norm. Usually I put out my time-lapse videos every other week, and then I trade off between whether I do an oil painting or a drawing. Oh, okay. My cat was making strange noises. I had to figure out what she was doing. She just found a box that she likes. And of course it's Athena who really likes the limelight. She wants everybody to pay attention to her and love her. But if you do, then she might run and hide. Because cats are confusing that way. Okay, I like my little trees here. They're not standing out as much as they would if I were working on a perfectly dry surface. So my white ink is actually blending a little bit with the black. But I think I'm okay with that. Just gives an idea that there's some pine trees there. Ooh, engagement photos. That sounds exciting. Are you going anywhere special to do those? One thing about spending your day on salt flats is it's very dry, and salt definitely saps liquid. So don't forget to drink water because I'm really thirsty now. Ooh, Asbury Trails. That's a good place to take engagement photos. You know, there was a big storm that went through. For those who are watching who don't know what Asbury is, it's the college I went to in Kentucky. It's in a tiny little town called Wilmore. It's south of Lexington. And there was this big storm that came through in the spring, and it felled like half this tree. So it probably got hit by lightning. I'm not sure exactly what happened. Anyway, I was walking through the cross-country trails with one of my friends, and we found this huge tree limb, and it had this perfect place to sit. And so we sat there and talked for a while. But it was super cool. Yeah, we're having a pretty autumn here in Utah. Basically, the whole mountainside is red, which is kind of awesome. And they're still turning in the valley, and so it's just only now starting to catch up to us. We're not even in the valley, we're on the bench, but it's only now catching up to us where we are now. So we've got some really pretty color happening. You know what? I'm gonna give this image some rim lighting. So a lot of my art, especially these Inktobers and then when I paint, is just sort of based off of gut instinct and what I think will look good. Which is why you'll often see me make last minute changes or decisions as I go. But I feel like I want to bring this mountain forward a little bit more, and these 3 little pine trees aren't enough to bring it forward. So I'm going to give it some rim lighting, which is sort of a white edge that pulls it forward. It makes it more distinct from the mountains behind it or any other object. It's a term often used, I believe, in comic books, especially because comic book illustrators use a lot of ink, and so maybe it's more just people who use ink, like just black and white, but I think most people who do are working in the comics industry. Now it's kind of looking like this mountain has some hair. I think I'm okay with that. Ooh, high ridge is an excellent idea. Actually, not that I have any input on this, but I think high ridge is better than the cross-country trails because you've got that amazing view over the Kentucky River. Actually, some really good friends just got married at Highbridge this summer. Yes. I'm sorry. They're the friends who are visiting, and I'm having fun watching the reaction from making that comment. They didn't actually get married at Highbridge, but that's where they had their reception.
We would have gotten married there if Rachel's allergies weren't so bad. And if weather was like something you could schedule.
Wink, wink, wonder who that was. Yeah. I tell you what, though, I got a lovely reaction. Just continue this Hill's hair. Actually, it looks better on the screen than it does in front of me. But then my spotlight here is actually causing a reflection, so maybe you guys can't see it as well as I can of what's happening here. Tried adjusting it a little bit. I was asked today what my favorite thing about living in Utah is, and it was a hard thing to answer. My first thought was my family, because I absolutely love living near my family. My nephew and niece are amazing, and I get to I get to have them grow up around me and know who I am, which I just think is amazing. Growing up in Mexico, I didn't know my extended family so well, and so I kind of love getting to know them and watch them grow. But beyond family, I think it's being around the mountains. They're just beautiful, and something that I really missed when I lived in Kentucky. And I had many an argument with Kentucky natives as to whether what they have are hills or mountains. They like to try and take all the mountains. I'm getting laughed at. Doesn't everyone like a hairy hill? I don't know, Sarah. You tell me. It's not a discussion I've ever really had with somebody whether they like hairy hills or not.
I feel like that's a great icebreaker right there.
For those who couldn't hear, Josh said he feels like that's a great icebreaker, and I kind of agree. So, if you guys go up to a stranger and ask them if they like hairy hills, please comment below on this video and tell me how that went. I would love to hear it. Even better, video it and send it to me as a video comment, because I really want to see that. Actually, the first things I did in Kentucky, this was for missionary kid orientation at Asbury. So it was before the rest of the freshmen arrived. We did a video scavenger hunt. So it's one of these where you do stupid, embarrassing things and video it, and whoever does it all wins, basically. And I'm normally a little bit... I have a small amount of social anxiety. I'm always concerned about what people think of me. But if I'm in the right atmosphere and the right group, I can throw that all out the window. Anyway, one of the challenges we had was to go to Walmart and propose to a perfect stranger, and nobody else in my group wanted to do it, so I did. I think I got a yes. A very bemused yes. So, as far as we know, I'm engaged to somebody that I've never met. Anyway, all that to say, Go up to somebody that you don't know and ask them if they like a hairy hill. You prefer them au naturel, huh? That's good to know. Yeah, I proposed to somebody. Actually, I've proposed to a lot of people. It's easier when you don't know them. But I feel like this conversation is devolving. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit of white to this second mountain. I'm not going to add any to these background ones. Well, I don't think. I say that now. We'll see what happens. But I don't want this one hill to look too extraordinary. I want it to actually look like it fits in with the rest of the picture. So I'm going to add a little bit of that rim lighting here on the edge here. Maybe do some lighting on the top of a ridge here or something. I don't know. If you've never tried to draw a mountain, you should really go out and study one and see what it looks like. It's really kind of amazing where all of the shadows lie and how you can tell what's a ridge and what's a valley and what it all looks like. And honestly, if you're interested in becoming an artist or learning more about art, that's the best thing I can recommend, is start noticing what things look like. I still maintain that art is less about learning how to reproduce things and more about learning how to see things. Because if you don't see them correctly in the first place, then you can't reproduce them. And it's amazing once you start noticing things, it's amazing what you see that's different from what you were brought up to believe you see. I know that's a confusing statement, but start looking around and noticing things, and it'll make sense. I'm sorry, Sarah. What can I say? I have commitment problems, I guess. I've proposed to a lot of people. Actually, one of my first jobs was working at a camp, and one of my friends, he was sort of an awkward guy, but we were good friends, and before we even became good friends, one of the first things he did was propose to me, and I said yes. So, you know, that was before college. So maybe he had prior, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. He had first say. Although I don't think he's interested in me anymore. That's a great comment, Rachel. I'm really curious as to what they responded. Horror. Horror. How much meat is on a gerbil? I bet you if you asked that in Ecuador, they could tell you. That was one of the... I was sad. That was one of the things we didn't get to try when we visited Ecuador. I kept telling my sister, who lived in Ecuador at the time, that that's... Guinea pigs. Yeah, well, you know, it's about the same thing, right? A gerbil, guinea pig, they're both rodents that people seem to want to adopt. Excuse me, my bias is showing. What was I saying? Oh yeah, Ecuador. So my sister lived in Ecuador for a while, and I took my youth group to Ecuador on a missions trip. And I tried to convince her that we should try guinea pig while we were there, just to give them a true cultural experience, but...
Instead we tried chicken feet soup, which was much better.
For those who can't hear, Josh said, instead we tried chicken feet soup, which is much better. Yeah, I would have rather have tried guinea pig, I think.
Amen.
Well, and growing up in Mexico, I've definitely had goat soup, which is not my favorite. And yes, they do put all of the goat in the soup. And if you are the visiting special guest, then you get the special parts of the goat that you never wanted to try. So that's one of my third culture experiences growing up, is that I don't like goat soup. And I don't like getting things like goat hooves in my soup. Alright. So we have a slightly less hairy mountain, but I think that that brings in, it connects my two mountains a little bit better, makes them look like they belong. You bought yourself? That's pretty impressive. I want to see that video someday, Sarah. Okay, I think we're just about done. Last thing I want to do, because these dark outlines on my far mountains are just driving me nuts. So I'm going to try and lessen how much they stand out by using my white pen. That's actually one of the things I use my white pen for most. I don't necessarily use it for highlights very often. It's more, excuse me, it's more when I have mistakes in a drawing. I'll go in with my white pen, and it works basically like whiteout, and then you can't see where I made my mistakes. Either that or incorporate my mistakes like a good artist should. Yeah, Sarah, if your old youth leader has it, definitely bring it when you come to visit, because I want to see that. It sounds totally entertaining. Yeah, if you see, now my mountain my furthest mountain sort of blends in a little bit more. It pushed it back further in the picture, and that's what I was hoping for. It shouldn't have ever had such a dark outline, but I let it dry too much in between bringing the ink down and applying it to the edge. So I get to correct it a little bit with my white pen here. I don't care if it has freshman Sarah. I think you're cute no matter what, so ha. Alright, so one last comment, and this has nothing to do with drawing, but one of my friends from college who is in my class has also started a YouTube channel. His name is Michael Span, and he's pretty awesome. If you're interested in hearing a Christian perspective on things like dating and politics and anything like that, he has some really interesting videos. He's actually been going live more recently so that he can answer your guys' question. So I recommend that you check out his YouTube channel and see if he has any answers for your questions. That was a really bad segue, but it's an awesome. It's Michael Span. It's Spann. He's awesome. So go check him out. Let him know that I sent you. Ha. Alright, I think we're done. I probably shouldn't add any more white to this drawing or it'll start looking silly. So I'm gonna sign off there. It is dry enough, so this one I'm actually gonna sign on screen. Put my little signature in the right hand corner. A lot of artists like to hide their signature. I don't know, from an early age I got the idea that all artists sign their pictures in the bottom right hand corner. So that's what I started doing, and I just sort of stuck with it. So bottom right hand corner, there's my signature, so everybody knows it's me. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, subscribe, all of those wonderful things. Hit the notification bell so that you know when I am uploading new videos. When November comes back around, I will start back uploading videos every other week as I did before. Once I reach 50 patrons on Patreon, then I will go to a video every week. So that's pretty awesome. Talk to your friends, let them know I'm here, share my video, all of that wonderful stuff. So I hope you guys have a good night, and I'll see you tomorrow.